again, and today we're going to be continuing to tackle the Edwardian decade and the styles that were done at that time with our mannequin. And we've already done one on young children up to 17 with the braided looks, the plaited looks, a regular chignon cottage loaf look, bordering on that sort of Gibson feeling. And now we're going to go a little bit more elaborate. Again, I'm going to use today's tools. So our mannequin is all fresh and ready for us, and I'm just going to use a little bit of working spray just so that I can get some body into this hair. Now, with the last look that I did, which was the cottager loaf, I worked with the hair naturally, and it was literally just sitting like this, just to prove, you know, you can work from nothing and still get a really nice style and more of that day wear natural look. Today we're going to be dressing this up more, so I'm going to start by setting it, and I'm going to set with hot rollers. Again, it's entirely up to you. You can use rags, you could use regular rollers, you could use a curling iron and just pin in as you go, but I want this to just set up for a little bit, so I'm going to start with my hot rollers. I'm going to start through the front, and I'm not going to do a direct parting, and I'm actually going to put smaller rollers at the very front and then larger rollers as I move back, and that's because I want more of a wave movement into the front area. And so I shall start this and talk about a couple of the rollers, and then I'll come back to it and explain it once it's set, so that you don't have to sit there and watch the whole thing being done and fall asleep on me, because that would not be good. So just taking a small section at the front, and I'm taking it, as you can see, at an angle, and I'm just picking up from both sides, but just taking an angle there, smoothing the hair out. And then I'm just going to take one of my smaller rollers from my hot roller set, wrap the ends around, and then bring this back and let it sit on top of its own section. I'll grab a pin and just hold that into place. With rollers, if the hair falls off the roller slightly, you know, you're not being judged on it. You know, this isn't an exam, but you do want most of the hair to be there, because otherwise, if it's cold and it's off, and they're a hot roller, it's obviously not doing anything. But yeah, basically just take the width of the roller both this way, and that way you'll know that the hair should fit pretty well onto the roller quite nicely. Once I've combed this out, I shall bring it forward, because that way you're getting lift into the root, which is what we want. So everything forward will give you a spring at the root area, everything back will drag. So I'm now going to grab a medium roller. So we've gone small, now medium. Pop a pin in there. If you hook the end of the hair when you're putting your pin in, that'll also help hold it all in place. I'm going to go behind there, and a trick that I've shown you before, but I'm repeating here, and it works really nice if you're doing a wet set like with regular rollers, is if you want a strong wave movement, then interlock your shapes or your sizes of roller. So if I go small, medium, I'm going to go back to small. And what that will do is, as you brush through, they will move into each other. If you use the same size over and over, what they'll do is they sit on top of each other. Great, it still gives you body and movement, but it won't give you quite so much of a wave feeling. We're going to be using clips, etc., as well, just to hold this once we start styling it out, to hold the wave a little bit stronger. But it's nice to have those little tips as you go along. Now they're all quite close together, these three, but now I'm working into the side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one section out by the ear, push that forward. I'll just use a clip just to hold this hair out of the way. And now I'm going to bring this forward and I'm going to set this in a larger roller. Wind that back, grab myself a pin and just pop that in. If it feels a little loose, just pop an extra pin in. The rollers normally come with pins. I find they're like socks in a dryer, you lose them within like days. So I use regular pins because I just know I can, but whatever works for you. Just behind that roller where we sectioned off, I'm just going to take another section and repeat. So that's just going in there sideways, another pin, and then we'll just hold that in place. So you've got the two rollers there, the three in the front, and now we'll come across to the other side. And here I'm going to immediately start with the side one that we did before. And so I'm going to put this in and then another roller behind. So I'll continue to roll this, including the back. But what I'll do is I'll give you a detail of how I've done it once it's done, just so you're not having to watch the whole thing. And again, your patterning might be completely different according to how you want the hair to sit. Okay? Okay, so if we've quite simply set this mannequin up into the position of what we want for our finished result. So what you're basically doing is just making sure the movement is moving in the direction that you're wanting. I put the small, medium, small in the front. I've done large through the sides, on both sides. And then as we came into the back, you'll see I've dropped through the center. The reason is I'm going to be using a transformation or a hairpiece, as it's known now, through the center, so that we can use the majority of the natural hair into the sides. Because remember, again, Edwardian, with the hats, with the way the hair looked, it was not like the Victorian and other times where the hair was up above. It was all about coming out to the sides. So I've dropped that. These rollers are set upwards, and again, dependent on the style that you wanted. If some of this was staying down at the back, you might want to have them sideways so that they spiraled. The variations on how you want it to look really depends on the finish that you're wanting. But if you go with this as a basic idea of the look, then obviously you can vary it. I've always said, whenever you look at a film or a movie or a set, there's an idealization of the look, which has to happen because you're trying to depict a period. And what you'll do is you'll see a lot of the same looks slightly varied. But if you think about the amount of countries in the world, even 100 years ago, and their ability to draw from each other, and then the artistic ability of each hairdresser, the same as every clothes stylist, to add their little bit to that look, you'll find that as you do these looks, you can vary them because there are differences. You're going back to ancient Greece and Rome, there was a lot of the sameness for many, many decades, even centuries, with some styles, because there wasn't that variation and there wasn't that ability to talk between places to see what other people were doing. But in this period, like many others, as we move forward in history, the interpretation is, I've got the idea, now the hairdresser, now the stylist, now the designer for clothes can put their interpretation on it. So we're going to let this cool down, then we'll come back to it, take the rollers out, and then we can start progressing with our style. Okay, we're back with our mannequin, and we have now taken the rollers out of the hair, and as you can see, we've got a nice wave. It's almost like a 1940s sort of wave at the moment, but obviously we're going to be putting this up for the period that we're working in. Smooth through the centre because, well, one, you're either going to build the natural hair up, or for ourselves we're going to use a transformation or a hairpiece to build this shape out, because we want to use most of the natural hair into the sides to create that width that we want within this look. Before we go on with actually doing the mannequin, I'll show you the transformation we're going to use, and so you can see that, and we can talk about how that's going to fit in. Also, whether you want to see any of those being done in the future as a separate video, you can always drop some comments in and let me know. Okay, so here we are with the transformational hairpiece. I love that word, transformation, you know, because obviously you're transforming the look, and that's what they called it back in the day, which is great. This is like a half piece. You can get half, 3/4, fringes, side areas. There's so many variations on these, and then also there's the pads and the areas built out. But for this particular piece, it's a fairly good match, but I don't mind it showing slightly because then you can see how it's being put together. I've made this myself by doing the curls into the hair, and I've left one piece down. So I'll put that up later and show that being placed into the hairdo that we're going to be doing for the Edwardian look on the mannequin. There are variations with this which you'll notice between the 17th century one that I did and these particular pieces. Hairpieces have been used throughout history, and they were really big again in the 60s. But you'll find the way they're used, or the shape of them, the size of them, can vary quite a bit. So as I say, this is the piece that we're going to be using. I've already curled it, but should you want to see one of these pieces without being set, and watch me set it up so that it gives you more of an idea of how to put it together yourself, then please let me know in your comments, and I can get another video at some stage together for you so that we can see this being done. I'm going to put her to one side for now, and then we'll carry on with the mannequin. Okay, so we're back with our mannequin now, and we will start to backcomb this just to get some body into the hair so that we can start building out that shape. Interesting enough, talking about the transformations of the hair pieces, another thing that was very popular, in fact, in different periods of history, there's beautiful little china pots. They look like a small teacup or a moustache cup, which ladies would keep on the side of their dresser. And what they were used for was for what was called drawings. And as you know, when you brush your hair through, whatever sort of brush you're using, as you brush your hair through, you're going to end up with some hair in a brush. What they would do is collect that and pop these little pieces into the pot until it grew and grew and grew, because obviously you're losing hair each time you brush it through. Then a very fine net would be used when you had enough, and the hair would be put into this, and you could compact it, compound it, and make it into any shape you wanted. So it was very useful for filling out rolls on the side and that sort of thing. And again, now I'm going to backcomb this and use the hair itself. But if you wanted, by using a roll, again, different periods of history these things have been used, you can have your own coloured hair by continually brushing it and keeping that hair, and then that can work into your style to pad it out and to create more volume. So interestingly enough, that's been done throughout different periods of time. So we're going to start through the front, where we put a little bit more of a wave in. I'm going to comb through as we always do, make sure we haven't got any knots into here. And then I'm just going to backcomb into the root, and actually just a little way up, halfway up. Some of the looks we've got, it's only at the root, but I just want that little bit more volume into this. I'm following the same pattern back, so the same as we put the rollers in. I'll just comb this up, comb it through, and then put my back combing in. And as I said before, with the back combing, bring it down to the root, and your hand, although it's firmly holding, is gradually allowing hair to drop through. So you're just dropping the hair through, and that way you can build your back combing up. Into the side now. So with this area, we put the rollers in this way. So I'm just going to use my clip just to hold this out the way while we're doing one section. Otherwise you can get all messy. Brush this through. Turn that over and just get those little knots out before I put my new knots in. And again, we're just filling that out. Slightly further down, remember, because this is going to be full to the sides. Your bristle brush afterwards is what's going to smooth the outer edge of this. So you do want to make sure that you've got this roughed up. I'm working on the inside of this because the outside is the area that I want smoother when it comes to the finish. I popped a little spray on, as you know, before we started setting up, and so I can afford to just let that go because I've got enough sort of texture in there. If you need a little bit more in your own hair or your mannequin, then by all means do. As I finish that side, I'm moving into the back. I'll just push that out of the way. As you will notice, remember we left this smooth? I'm not building this area up. When we did the cottage loaf, the centre became a central part of the actual image, the actual look that we were doing. With this, we're using all the hair that we can to the sides naturally so that we can use our transformation through the top. And so as I backcomb and work through this, I'm not backcombing directly into the top. I'm allowing that to fall to the side. Let that fall away again. And then I'll come round to this side, push that over. Same again, we worked to the side, so I'll backcomb this up. Backcombing is one of those things, when you first start doing it, you do this and nothing seems to happen. But you'll get into the swing of it if you haven't done it before. And all you're doing is, well, we call it backcombing, or you can call it ratting, but it's just tangling the hair up. It's in a, you know, a bit of a nest, and that's the whole idea of it, because you're creating volume. Come through again. And I'm just going to lift this out of the way. Just use a pin to hold it back. Come to the underneath, and again I want a reasonable amount of backcombing here because we're going to fill this whole area out. And then I should just drop the top down. So all we're doing is the same idea all the way around, just filling out and creating this sort of volume, which looks very messy right now, but I assure you it will look fine in a little while. With this top area, I'm just backcombing, instead of at the root now, I'm just backcombing mid-shaft down because I'm going to be parting this around, and you'll see that as we work through. So obviously she's gained a lot of volume already just by doing that, but now I'm looking at the structure and how we're going to fill this out. So what I first want to do is, as you know, this is the front, here's the side, and so I'm pushing a little bit of that backcombing out, and I'm just looking at my shape using my tail comb. If you're doing this on yourself, you're fine. You can bring it down and flatten. If you're doing it on somebody, don't poke with the tail comb. It can be exceedingly painful. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm tracing the head shape, and I'm going to move around and I'm going to use my bobby pins, and you can start this from the front or the side, but I'm going to start by bringing this down, and I'll work to the side just so you can see what I'm doing. I'll work with a few different pins so you can actually see, and I'm going to put the pin in. So I've got a bobby pin in there. Remember, I felt down to the head shape so I know where I'm going to roll the hair to. So you don't want it too high, you don't want it too low. You want it around the center of the head shape so I can feel that, and now I'm going to follow that around. And the best way to get your pins to hold is to lock them. So once you've got one pin into place, your next pin at an angle, because you're going round, will go over the top of the area of the first pin, and then you can slide it up, and that will now lock those two pins together. And I will bring one into the front, so again, and that will bring that together. So we're going to continue this around. This we won't lock the same way. I'm just going to work it next to the pin that I've just done. You can look over the backs, but the backs are a little bit tighter to do. I shall grab another pin and do the same again. This time I'm locking over. I'm going to come around. And this is why your back combing here is halfway down. You can get longer bobby pins as well if you want, and if you feel that they're not too long for you to work the shape. But for me, a regular size bobby pin works quite nicely, because then you can get that roundness to the squareness of the pins. If it's too long, it's a bit more jagged. I just find that I have a little bit more control this way. Coming round again, and I'm just going to put that there. I'm just dropping this down slightly. It's around the occipital area because I'm wanting to fit my hairpiece in. That's another thing as well. If you want, you can look at the circumference of your transition. You can measure it up before you start if you're a bit worried about it not fitting afterwards. But I'm fairly confident, so we'll see how we go. So another pin there, and then we'll just be finishing this off into the top. And if you want to lock down, then all you're going to do is, when you have your last pin in, and I'll just show you that here, you can then lock down the opposite way with a pin, and that just holds the two pieces together. So you basically end up with a circle of pins through the top of the head. Okay. Admittedly, she is not looking that attractive right now, but we will start to work on that right now. I'm going to now get my brush, and now I can start looking at my shape, brushing the back combing and just seeing how the hair's sitting and where I want it to sit. Remember, as you brush back combing out, as you work with your shape, never worry when it's long hair. Long hair can go up, you can redo it, you can back comb it again. What you're doing is you're just playing to see how your shape's going to sit, and that way you're not going to worry yourself too much. I'm just going to pop a pin in there and see how that's looking, because I want to now, I'd be working and looking in the mirror. I'm going to pull my fringe area up. I'm going to bring that forward, and I'm just going to put my comb down for a minute while I'm brushing on the underneath. Can you see I'm just pulling a little bit of that side? I'm not panicking because nothing is set in place yet. I'm just working my shape out. Okay, so now I'll pop a little spray under here. And although I'm going to be bringing this back, I'm just pulling it over to this side so I can see how things are going to fit together. Yeah, okay. So now I'll just drop that down. I can go back to my first section. And now, using, as we did before, the hair that is not needed, we're going to tuck that in. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to turn it right the way around so you can see what we're doing. When you're working on your own with one camera, it's just making sure that it's making sense to you as well as me. So tuck the hair back, which we've done before. Loosely pull that up, just checking the underneath again. Take your time. Once this is in, it's in for the evening or the event, whatever, so take your time to get that up. Now I can use my fingers just to place where I want that to be, and also to unwrap it a little bit and have it as full as I want on the sides. Remember, the sides during the Edwardian period is where all the volume is, or was. It's not on top as much as it would have been in different periods of history. So my pin now goes in above the pins I've already done, because that means now I've got security into that area. And now I have a roll starting to the side. I'm now going to, that's a little bit from there, see, it doesn't matter. This is just the inside here, that's fine. So now I'm going to grab this top hair, this front hair, make sure it's nice and smooth. Again, I'm going to work towards the ends, and that means that I've got more to play with. So then I can bring this up. I can look at my front, and I can blend that together. I want this to fall over the forehead slightly rather than going directly back, because I want to keep that softness. So I'm working to my pins again, and I'm just going to place a bobby pin in the top. Now I can manipulate this as we work around, and I can, again, as we had before, pull these two together. They're already in place, but that just means that I can add another bobby pin to the back where the two join together, so that as these two pieces come together, I can put a pin and run it across, and that way those two pieces now form a single shape. I'm going to come across to the other side. She's going all over the place. She's drunk. And now I will pull the side in. And that's the nice thing about backcombing in the direction that you want the hair to go. It means that you can see how everything is fitting together. So underneath, just brush that. Drop the hair through. bring it up, and then once it's up, you can start manipulating it and bringing it into place. So you can make it as, I say fat, but you know what I mean. You can make it as wide and as big as you want, or you can make it quite close, according to the period and the type of look you're doing. Rolls have been around for many, many centuries, but if you look at them, every time they're done, they have a different meaning and a different way of styling. I mentioned quite a lot the 40s ones because the way that you're bringing it together works quite well for both, but the looks are completely different. They are based on each other, and as we said before in other videos, fashion and hair fashion, clothes fashion, they're all derived from the inspiration that we get from different periods. Sometimes, like in the 20s, with the discovery of the Egyptian tombs or the Tutankhamun tomb, it started a major frenzy with you know, very strong bobs, with clothes with a lot of Egyptian style and jewelry as well, very much cartouches and things over them. And so, you know, each period feeds off another period as you start to get these things together. Okay, I'll continue through this into the back. We're just doing the same thing as I've done before. I shall brush underneath. I will bring this up and we will fit this together, and then I'll come back to you and we will start working through the center. Okay, so we've continued through the back, just rolling the hair, shaping those pieces together, and we've just got this nice rounded shape with a nice, you can see how full the sides are now, and we have this empty area which you would never allow. I mean, you'd normally have a bun in there if we'd use the natural hair. Again, for people that are not of means, they would work with their own hair. They wouldn't have another choice. But for this particular aristocrat or this person going out for an evening, they do have the choice, and so we are able to use a transformation in this. So we have our hair shape going over to the side. Also, incidentally, if you want more of a wave, because I did say, you know, using this and putting a bit more softness, another thing that was done, and you can still do now, is use an iron, and you can create more of a wave. So if I want more of a wave through this front, I can hold the hair, and you can place your iron on the hair, and the iron is on, and you can then, from the top to the bottom, you can just place a little bit more of a wave into that look, and it just gives you a little bit more of a softer feeling to that hair. So that works quite nicely, and the smaller the iron, the more heavy the waved feeling you get. You can see that falling through quite nicely, and I can just use my clip just to hold that. Sorry, get in the way of the camera. I can use that just to hold that in place while I work on the top. So now we have our nice wave, we have our hair falling in place as it moves around, and then we have our center area, which is quite void of hair at the moment, although I think the shape works quite nice. If you look at the chin, if you look at the angle up from the head shape and the natural hairline, it works quite nicely. So now we're going to work with our transition. Now, as I said, I've set this one earlier. The colour is a pretty good match. There's a slight variation. We have some small combs here, and so we'll work from the front, and that's why I've worked this shape into the front area. I will put my comb just at the base of where everything is coming together, where we put our bobby pins and where we brought our hair over the top. We will now just put that into that area, and then I'll clip on the underneath. And now around the edge where the curls are already set because I've put them in place, I will just grab some bobby pins and feed them through from the transformation into the hair itself. And you'll just need to do that in a few places because we've already got the comb, and there's another comb on the back which I will put in place. These could be completely set up before. What I've done here is I've just left one piece out, which I can finish now. And you could even have this as a nice piece left down into the back. This would be the sort of thing you'd wear for an evening opera or the theatre or a cocktail party, obviously with a beautiful S-shaped corset under your stunning evening gown, and it would just look absolutely beautiful. Just bring these curls into place. And the nice thing about leaving a couple of pieces out as well, you literally bring them directly into the natural hair. For evenings, for daytime, as you know, hats were extremely popular. Just choosing my shape where I want this to go. Hats were extremely popular during the day. There were evening hats, but generally for evenings it was feathers, stuffed birds, pearls, all sorts of ornate things that would go in their hair. And again, as hats got extremely big, which was fine during the day, the evening pieces became colossally big as well. And they got to the point where in many theatres they were telling ladies they could not wear their pieces too high, or they had to take them off because it was ruining the viewing for the people behind them, because these pieces were just such large plumed areas or pieces that you could not see past them. So again, quite a wonderful idea. It's interesting because I know now we have shoes that are extremely high or platform. You know, McQueen did some fabulous ones back in the day. You'll see Lady Gaga going around with extremely large shoes. But they, again, you know, and they were popular during the Second World War. But if you go back to Venice, hundreds of years ago, women had platform shoes where it became illegal because they were getting so bad they couldn't walk in them, and so male domination stopped the shoes being worn. But you will always see things coming back into fashion. And so now you do a roll around the edges, we put a bit of a wave in, which hopefully you like. You could do that, you can leave that out. Irons are great for adding that extra bend into hair if it's not already there for you. But immediately, and you can understand why the core hairpiece is transformations, we now move from that look being semi-elegant to being absolutely gorgeous with this array of cascading curls through the center. And what I'll do is I'll grab one of the evening pieces, this type of thing that they would wear, and I'll show you that with the height, which, you know, makes you understand why it may look fabulous, and I'm all for it, but it probably would have been annoying if you'd been sitting behind it. So 1 second and I'll get that for you. Okay, so here is a completed look for an evening, quite elegant, a little over the top maybe for today's standards, but worked very well for that Edwardian feeling. And you can see, I mean, if you were sitting here trying to watch a show, it'd be singularly annoying, although you might admire the person's hair, hopefully, because that would be all you'll be able to see. We have the roll all the way round with the wave through the front. The roll, as we say, filling out towards the edges so that we have this width out to the sides. The transformation, finishing the center, and then for the fun of it, we've added an Edwardian-esque piece into the center, which would look very nice. The hats were even more unbelievable, and I'm going to try and show you something like that in another video. But this is our finished look. I hope you like it. If you have any comments, please put them down. As I say, I always try to work with today's tools, and the biggest thing is to take the fear out of long hair. If you don't get it right, take it down. It doesn't matter. It's not, you haven't cut it off, you haven't colored it. And it's just a real fun way to look at history and see how you can incorporate those looks if you're an avid period lover of a certain time in history, or if you're in theatre or movies, or you just have to make a quick transition for somebody. Anyway, more looks on the way. If there's a certain period you want to see and I can get that done for you, let me know and I'll do what I can. Otherwise, enjoy the day and enjoy the look. Thanks.